The gayest game of 2024 has just dropped, bestie! Dragon Age Veilguard has officially been released, and to call it the most divisive game of 2024 would be an understatement. At the time of recording this, the concurrent play count on Steam sits at 84K, making it the most successful BioWare launch to date, surpassing the likes of every single-player game EA has released, including Star Wars Jedi Survivor. However, as Razorfist points out, you could mention that it's their first proper Steam launch since the Origin experiment imploded, making it the first modern BioWare game to be released concurrently on Steam and not held as an exclusive somewhere else. On Metacritic, the critic average and the user average has a wide gap, but there's a lot to talk about here. Speaking of dragons, why don't you drag those balls and that snail trail across the like, subscribe, and bell notification button. As a casual enjoyer of the culture war spectacle, it's fascinating to see how this hot potato burns the palms of all hands that touch it. And I should mention, I've never played a Dragon Age game in my life, so if you're a big fan of the series, discontent with the reception and the rollout of this game, my heart goes out to you. If you're a fan of how the series is going, well, I'm happy for you. Just stay away from the stuff that I love. I trust you as much with fun franchises as much as I trust Jared Fogle at a preschool. So the first thing to talk about is the review code controversy, which to say in the very least is really messy. There's no way to get to the bottom of it unless you're sitting at the corporate office in EA, and perhaps this is what they were going for. People are talking about the game. Apparently, BioWare gave some content creators the ability to have their hands-on impressions of the game, and some of them were pretty critical of it. One of them, being at Wolfheart FPS, writes, 3 creators, myself included, were a bit more critical than others with our hands-on time with Dragon Age the Veilguard. Not a single one of us will be getting a review code with time to actually give an opinion before release. Just thought I'd throw it out there. He goes on to say, please keep in mind, folks, that this does not mean that my more critical opinion is better or more truthful than those that have been more positive. I am simply pointing out how marketing works. This also doesn't mean the game will be bad, but it is something to consider. Well, it did not take long for the usual suspects in the YouTube commentary community to jump onto this as if it were definitive evidence of tomfoolery. In response to Vera Dark posting her video talking about the particular issue, Kerberus who is seemingly on the side of body positivity, called bullshit on Vera while criticizing her looks, cited another YouTuber, Dantix, at Dantix Official, who claimed, I have been extremely critical. I received a code very early. Things take a twist for the peculiar. Remember Noor, the variety streamer that initially got the LGBTQ flavored scoop on Dragon Age? Well, she was talking to a friend of hers, streamer Natalia Sinova, who apparently claims she got the review code just by claiming that she's non-binary and then proceeded to rip the game to shreds. By this time, the mistrust around the game was spreading around like AIDS in the Abbey in the 90s. People were beginning to fall for anything to fit their narrative, including Grums, aka Mark Kern, one of the original minds behind the World of Warcraft, who has not exactly been on his A game as of late. Grums stumbled upon a false document masquerading as review guidelines for Dragon Age the Veilguard that came from that one place where morals go to slowly decay and everything is 100% true. 4chan. I love 4chan. Must have gotten his rocks off, man. When it became more and more obvious that it was fake, Grums tweeted something else that dismissed the validity of the document, any sort of culpability of him spreading misinformation, stating, but I really wonder what are the actual guidelines. I'm doubting he gave it much thought. Mark later reflected on his misdeeds and said he would make an effort to be better from here on out. I posted this as a rumor leak and it turns out it was false. Sometimes rumors don't pan out to be true. I'm leaving this up because it's already community noted and I'm not trying to hide a mistake. Thanks to my followers who helped me track this down. You guys deserve better vetted information and I'll be doing that much more in the future. Now, I'm going to put on my SJW hat on for a second. Mark, my dog, you gotta do better than this.
You've got to do better.
Mark. Sometimes rumors don't pan out to be true to me is incredibly revealing because it shows that you want this to be so true so you can justify bloodlust. The attitude doesn't help, homie, especially if you want the fence sitters to hop over to your side. If you're listening, which you're probably not, you're one of the biggest voices, if not the biggest voice in this movement. Every little thing you do will be scrutinized by your opponents. You have to be immaculate with everything that you do. You can't afford to be foolish. Like my G, it takes 2 seconds and a double-digit IQ to look at how on the nose and absurd, or even the cursor on this document. Like, dude, it was fake as fuck! But here's the thing, though Mark missed the mark with that particular point, he brought up another point which points to fuckery within the urine-stained underpants of BioWare. Asakoko Enjoyer pointed out something very peculiar to say the least. If you're looking at a lot of these reviews ranging from 70s to 100s on the review aggregate site Metacritic, all of them contain a very particular phrase that the game is a quote-unquote return to form.
We are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Well, that's just odd. If we're going to be fair in our coverage, we have to concede this point as at Airbagged with a little snark in his step, pointing out when describing Black Myth Wukong reviews on YouTube that many of them in their titles put the phrase stunning visuals in it. Okay, touche. But there's more to explore here. So John Epler, the creative director on Dragon Age of Veilguard, talking about the game on his Blue Sky account, writes, 5 years ago, when I rejoined the project as a narrative director after a hiatus on Anthem, I was asked about my goals for the project. And one of them I put was, I want to see the phrase, quote unquote, a triumphant return to form for BioWare in at least one review. Excited to finally mark that goal down. Well, dang. Either this guy has Aleister Crowley levels of manifestation, or perhaps, as the curious Brett on Asmongold's Reddit page pointed out, Ziff Davis Media owns Eurogamer, 2 Extreme Tech, GamesIndustry.biz, IGN, PC Mag, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG247, of which IGN also owns Outside Xbox, Digital Foundry, Hookshot, of which Hookshot owns Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox, and Time Extension. When you really start digging, there are only 2 to 3 voices in media. It's just about 3 people owning all the companies and telling you the same thing with different faces. They are the lords of media, and you will listen to what they want you to hear. You have no alternatives, and if there are, they will just buy it, and everyone has a price. So in relation to Kate Bush's husband, aka Airbagged, which on its face is a good point, I think falls under the category of false equivalency, being that, at least to my knowledge, these YouTube reviewers act independently, at least for the most part, from corporate entities. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Again, never underestimate the reach of Tencent's tentacles, which are in essence the tentacles of the CCP, that being the Chinese Communist Party. Dude, listen, we're YouTubers. We like to buck the system. There's absolutely no way we could ever be bought. No way whatsoever. Anyways, moving on. Oh, so you know that scorching hot potato I was yammering about, the one that's like a fiery spud from Hades, leaving everyone it touches doing the dance? Well, cast your peepers over to the famed Kotaku journalist Jason Schreier's hands, and you might just spot some sizzling potato-induced battle scars. Schreier, while running cover for the game, posted the stats, which, let's be honest, aren't exactly Concord levels of failure, but not exactly celebratory Wukong levels, trying to be somewhat snarky towards those who use the cliched phrase, go woke, go broke. Locked the replies in his tweets, which, let's be honest, doesn't exactly show confidence in your sentiment. And then you have the 2016 anti-SJW Andy Worski quote retweeting him saying that the game isn't going to make its money back, in which Andy was promptly blocked. Isn't it kind of fascinating how journalists who used to be held in high esteem are kind of exposing themselves as the hacks that they are when faced with any sort of scrutiny? But that was merely a jab on Jason Schreier's credibility. Here comes the mean left hook. When at Airbagged was continuing to spread rumors about Grums stealing breast milk at his time at Blizzard, I'm not even going to bother pronouncing that properly, Shell, quote, retweeted him in saying this. I don't like Grums, but it's important to point out that he did in fact leave and was not at Blizzard when this shit was taking place. You know who did have information about the sexual harassment and abuse going on at Blizzard and hid it? Your friend Jason Schreier. The sexual harassment he brings up is in reference to Schreier holding back scandalous juice, which he saved for a tell-all book he put out called Play Nice, which details a whole lot of corporate misbehavior taking place at Blizzard. Because we all know that Schreier always acts in good faith. Right? Airbagged, who if you don't know is one of the bigger counter voices to Gamergate 2, ain't exactly off the hook here either. In response to YouTuber Hypnotic posting his Dragon Age character, which was an aesthetic mess as a mockery towards the game, Airbag in a deleted but screen captured tweet is quoted in saying, "I truly think we should beat Hypnotic to death." When asked if he changed his mind, he replied with a simple, nope. Listen, as someone who doesn't hate Airbag, I actually think he can be pretty funny. Or anyone for that matter. I love everyone. And thinks that hypothetical violence can be funny. I'm not gonna clutch my pearls here because it would be antithetical to the person that I am. But I think we can all acknowledge that when you resort to violent sentiments, threats, or actual violence, there's a 99.99999 1% chance that the mockery has gotten under your skin and you've lost the argument. From a purely observational standpoint, having glimpsed snippets of the gameplay, the dialogue's pacing in Dragon Age: The Veilguard strikes me as anything but organic. It's as if an AI, after meticulously analyzing the art of civil discourse, scripted the interactions with a clinical precision. There's an absence of natural ebb and flow you'd expect from a conversation. No one steps on each other's lines. No one talks over anyone else. Instead, characters engage with politeness so exaggerated it borders on antiseptic. Moreover, the dialogue often descends into what feels like an over-didactic monologue preached to you on the corner of the meanest blocks of Sesame Street. It's as if the game's scriptwriters aim to educate rather than entertain, transforming potential engaging dialogue into a stilted lecture series. This approach, while perhaps well-intentioned, robs the narrative of any sort of dynamism of any sort of robs the narrative of any sort of dynamism, making the characters' exchanges feel less like real interaction and more like a rehearsed exchange of information. Don't take my word? Play the clip, Kabooby!
Emmerich, you clearly find talking about dragons boring.
What? How? Who doesn't like dragons?
Aren't you curious why Tash likes them as much as you like necromancy?
The question crossed my mind.
And maybe Emmerich could help demystify magic, Tash.
Or how about the chick in a pirate hat doing a performative apology because she misgendered someone?
Pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it, sorry.
Since when do pirates have such good manners? I don't know. From an outsider perspective, all this looks incredibly contrived. And then lines such as non-binary. I just said, I'm going to use they instead of she from there on. Certainly there's an argument to be made that this meticulous approach to the dialogue might cater to a niche audience, providing a level of comfort for those who prefer their interactions devoid of conflict or overlapping speech. However, this very precision could be the Achilles heel of immersion for the broader gaming audience. I'm almost ready to move on, but we gotta read this together. One of the dialogue options you can choose is oof, and where Rook replies, well, that's awkward. And then Spite says, he's fun. You're never fun. From the snippets I've gathered, Dragon Age: The Veilguard aspires to embody a dark fantasy atmosphere, yet the execution of its narrative seems to clash with its intent. The dialogue, reminiscent of a bygone era of TV writing, akin to the now somewhat dated and overused stylings of Joss Whedon, coupled with an infusion of contemporary gender politics, appears jarring within the established lore of dark fantasy. Such elements can inadvertently dilute the gritty, immersive world building typically associated with the genre, potentially alienating players who seek the raw, unfiltered essence of dark fantasy. But we mentioned IGN, and they're not off the hook yet. Well, per usual, people don't seem to be taking anything they put out seriously. Let's get this out of the way. Dragon Age: The Veilguard is very progressive. Progressive enough to make Bernie Sanders blush. If you weigh down with DEI, from what I've seen, this game isn't for you. It's made with a very specific audience in mind. One of the members of this audience is Leanna Hafer, the author of the Dragon Age: The Veilguard review on IGN. To give you a glimpse into the elements that constitute as a good game for Leanna, here's a clip for you.
I'm the main character, also Azeroth's favorite princess and the most interesting girl in the world. This is, simply put, a vastly more enjoyable way to play a video game for me. And it might be the biggest step WoW has taken forward design-wise in the 2 decades I've been playing it.
Well, it's very apparent that this sort of representation means a lot to Leanna, because in Leanna, notice how I'm saying Leanna's name so I don't misgender Leanna. This gender crap is really making things so difficult. Because in Leanna's review, Leanna makes it a point to let us know that Leanna is non-binary, and the topics pertaining to gender identity and expression heighten the joys of the game for Leanna. IGN gave the game a 9 out of 10, and on YouTube, the like to dislike ratio of the review shows that the overall sentiment for the review has gamers saying something along the lines of, yeah dog, we ain't exactly buying what you're selling. According to YouTuber SmashJT, he was contacted by by someone working at BioWare for some time mentioned that if you don't fall in line with the infinite acronym cult, you are apparently ostracized from a less than pleasant work environment, promoting people within the company who would openly talk about their sexual exploits within the office space. Have you guys ever been in verbal handcuffs and had a sexual deviant talk to you about their casual sexual exploits in detail? I have. It's not exactly pleasant. Please tell me your experiences in the comments. Or don't. Actually, I would prefer that. I mean, come on, but what were you expecting, guys? One of the writers for Dragon Age: The Veilguard, Laura Kate Dale, who is fired from Kotaku, who describes herself in her Twitter alternative Blue Sky bio as a quote-unquote queer consultant, has worked on books such as Uncomfortable Labels, My Life as a Gay Autistic Trans Woman, Gender Euphoria, Stories of Joy from Trans, Non-Binary, and Intersex Writers, and a children's book titled Me and My Dysphoria Monster. Would you want your kids reading that book, Racer X?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, we're on the same page here. No pun intended. And of course, how can I forget her magnum opus, Things I Learned from Mario's Butt. What? So, what do you guys think? Are you going to be buying this stupid ass game? Leave it down in the comments. I will be passing.